Welcome to your favorite podcast, Still Uncaptured, with me, Khosi Magubane.
And myself, Undumiso Kangcobo Iqadi, lasemaqadini. How are you guys?
It's hot in the studio. But other than that, it's doing okay. How about you?
No, man, I'm great. I mean, I've just had to make a run downstairs.
Yes.
So I'm still
A
catching
little
my
out
breath.
of breath.
A little out of breath.
Yeah. So we're having a guest today,
Yes.
a friend of yours,
Yes.
Khosi Magubane, who joins us in studio in Rosebank, Johannesburg. Khosi, welcome.
Thank you so much.
The conversation today is a little somber,
A little somber.
to be sure.
Yes.
Today we're talking about losing your child. What happens when your child dies before you? You know, we've got a saying in our lives that you're not supposed to bury your children. And we're sitting with Khosi here, who's going to tell us a first-hand account of what it was like to lose her child. Khosi, let's get back to the basics. Tell me about your child.
So I was blessed with a baby girl. Her name was Nomonde. Nomonde came from the fact that there was a lot of patience on my side. She came when I was 36 and I'd been married prior for 4 years and didn't have babies. So I'd written off babies in my mind and then played with the wrong instruments of a male's body. Person came. I was very happy. So when she came, she lived all of 3 years. But the funny dynamic about it is that on her birthday, which was on the 23rd of July, she asked for a party at Play School. We had a party at Play School with pizza and a cake that she chose. She liked Cars, the movie. So we had Cars at the school. It was beautiful. On Friday, she decides, no, actually, I want another party tomorrow. Talk to Gogo. And I had planned to have a party, but it wasn't going to be anything big. Somehow it magnified itself. It ended up being a big party on the 27th at my house. And that very same big party was the day she passed. Surrounded by all my friends at my house. I think she fell into the pool. I know she was big on pool etiquette though. So she's the type of kid who'll come in the house and say, Mama, I need to wear my Mickey Mouse costume or my whatever costume, and then you must come watch me. And we also did swim school. So if it was anything, it might have been an accident. I don't think she jumped into the pool. But whatever the case is, on the day that she passed, her party was on the day.
So she was surrounded by people.
Everyone was there. Nobody saw anything. It was like the weirdest thing ever. At the hospital, I probably had like 7 family and friends in that space while they were trying to resuscitate her. The next day was the 702 walk the talk. I opened my eyes and I could see hundreds of t-shirts at my house. So it was like overwhelming in so many ways. And also very unreal. I probably didn't make sense of it for the longest time. Not that I do now, but and also her celebrating on a Wednesday and feeling actually I want to celebrate again.
On
the Saturday.
On the Saturday.
But who was the first person who said there's something wrong?
Refilwe. So there's a kid friend, Refilwe Malageng. He's now in production. He was my elder son's friend. So he spotted, he jumped in, he pulled her out. He was all of 13 years?
Yeah.
And then we rushed to Linksfield, the hospital. And we had an amazing doctor, Unya Sulu. She was so patient. Like she probably resuscitated for more than 45 minutes.
Oh man.
It was a crazy, crazy thing. Yeah.
And so now the thing about this is because I wanted just to talk about the fact that as I sit here as we're recording this, a friend of mine just last week lost his son, 30 years old. My friend Kosnati Madlal, I've known him for almost 40 years, right?
Yeah.
If not longer, actually, probably about 40 years. And this is part of the conversation that we're having. You and I have known each other for a very long time.
Yes.
We've known each other for over 20 years.
Unilever days,
We were at Unilever together.
Yeah.
And part of this conversation is the fact that I am hearing this story for the first time. And the reason that I'm hearing it for the first time is at the nub of a part of the conversation we're having about the awkwardness that people feel about saying to you. Because we've had plenty of opportunity for me to actually ask you and say to you, Khosi, how did it happen? But as naturally, Khumuto knows this about me.
Yeah.
I normally do not ask that question with people, just in general.
We always say
You-
like
Yes,
kinandaba. Because
yes,
I'm
yeah,
always just like, but so what happened? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I wouldn't have the
yeah.
gall to ask you
Yeah.
directly necessarily unless you
Yeah.
offered. Is there etiquette
That,
around that?
yeah.
Okay, so how I experienced it,
Mm,
I think everybody who comes through has good intentions. So
mm,
people who leave whatever they're doing and come to your space during your time of grief have good intentions. Sometimes things that they say don't necessarily come out right, but I've learned to understand it comes from a good place. So to give you an example, I had people from my mom's church who'd be like, "No, guy, no, it's
Ooh.
during the time of pain."
no,
Oh
man.
my God.
They really were stressed. They were shocked. They were being real, like they wanted that. And it wasn't
Yeah,
about me. It was how stressed they were feeling.
yeah.
And I had to understand, Luguti, they didn't come to hurt me. They came because this is shocking. So not
Mm,
everybody knows how to handle. And I always equate grief with poverty. It has a stench that makes you not want to be part of it. You've got close friends you encounter and they go through like loss and you don't know what to say. And funny enough, I believe whatever you have to say is what God intends you to say. So it's okay. However
mm.
you choose to deal with them, whether it's come and sit and keep quiet or it's come and cook at my house, whatever you want to do, it's necessary. But we just question ourselves a lot and we want a reason because there's just something uncomfortable about grief.
Because I mean, part of the difficult question, since you've gone there,
Yeah.
about your mother's church group coming and asking, where were you? When's Enjan is, I can only imagine that as a parent, because when Khumuzo and I were talking about this, right?
Yeah.
And we were planning the show. We decided, no, we need to have someone who's gone through it, because all you and I can ever do is speculate,
yeah.
Khumuzo and I, because we've never had it. So when you, that question, how much of it as a parent do you go through all of that, where you're looking at people and you're thinking, are they judging me? Where was I? How much of it
I
is
think
there?
you know what's crazy in the midst of, because Umande took forever to get to me. And I'd had my fair share of ups and downs, like most people. We talk about some, we don't talk about some, but I've experienced the highs of highs and the lowest of lows. So I think partially maybe God was preparing me to say, you're going to feel all the 4 seasons because something big is going to happen to you and I need you to come out there without slitting your wrists type of thing. So when the events happen, I think I was numb. Um, for most of the time, I couldn't understand what was happening. But another weird thing is that I was never alone.
Yeah.
Even in the toilet, maybe Nomakuku will be standing there. In the bath, Prashini is there with me. Like there was never a moment preparing for burial where I could introspect. In my bed, there was someone with me. So my troops, my tribe, my friends, they rallied to cover me. As I didn't even choose the outfit I wore. Everything was just happening around me because I think they were scared to kind of see what could happen, knowing how much I wanted the soul, how much I enjoyed her arrival, how much I cherished her existence. It was expected that when she goes, I'm gonna break. So, but I think Uncle has a weird way of preparing you so that when the situation happens, it kind of unfolds in a way that gives you a sense of comfort, although you don't know what is comforting you. So, lessons I learned in retrospect, I'd seen pain and understood that things get better, but I wasn't going to tell you at that time, go to no, don't worry, my baby's gone, it's going to get better. I didn't know. And the getting better part is also not quite true. You get to accept Tugutu Hambile, you find comfort in knowing where she is. You find comfort in knowing that her grave is my grandmother's grave. And it's even more selfish when somebody comes and tells you that their child now is challenging them. And a part of you is like, oh, I feel your pain and I'm praying that you sort this out. But I think God spared me. And I don't know if it's true, but my coping mechanism allows me to believe, okay, mina, ang na stress ok tumumtane stolo ngithi, is she gonna get there or is she gonna get raped? Because I know where she's at. So the mind gives you ways to make sense of a situation that doesn't make sense.
It's always quite shocking to me because that's apparently one of the, let me say, children drowning
Yes,
in the family pool is
it's common.
it's incredibly common in
It's
South Africa. We've got some
Mm,
of the highest rates of
Yes,
swimming pools per capita,
yes,
right? Which is nice. I mean, it's nice to have, with these heat waves that we've been
yeah.
having, nice to go take a dip.
Take a dip.
But what did you find out about how many children actually die by drowning?
I probably had in that year more than 4 people call me about their own close personal friends losing their child the same way I had. I also had a friend tell me that it happened to a person that they knew prior, which I'd never heard until it happened to me. And a part of me thinks, okay, we now live in the burbs, there's more pools, maybe that's why. But when you listen to some like stories that happened in the rural areas, kids even drown in Fulani. So drowning
very
is
true.
a thing.
Hmm.
Very
It's there,
true.
it exists.
Yeah, because I remember because I used to be in my former life, I used to be a high school teacher. I actually lost one of my
Kids.
kids in my class in the rural areas, Umgeni River.
Mm.
I think that what had happened, the Duzi Marathon
Yes.
was about to, and so they opened all the water to come and was flooded and that happened. So now here another question is w- you were talking about people who have gone through the same thing,
Yes.
right? Um, groups.
Yes.
Your experience. Did you at some point go to groups of parents that no, because
I
every
laugh when you say that. My
yeah
first encounter, which was initiated by my employer at the time, was to go see a psychologist. I went to her house. And when we sat there, she was like, also, tell me what happened. This is a debrief for grief, blah, blah, blah. As I was telling her what's happening, she started crying. I'm here to get help.
yeah
She started crying. And I looked at her and said, oh my gosh, you're such a wonderful soul. Oh, how could this happen to you? Oh my gosh. And she was in tears, getting tissues. And I'm still telling my story to her and she's breaking down. So I gave her a minute. And after a while, I asked her, so what is the real reason you're crying? And then she starts citing people she knows personally, not only blacks, by the way, who've
Mm,
also had similar traumatic situations. And it triggered something to me. When people came to pay their sympathies, there were people who had never met Nomonde who were bawling their eyes out. And some of them, I understand, maybe they were crying because they know it took a while to get here and now it's gone. Others had journeyed with me because Nomonde was everybody's person. I took her everywhere. She was a socialite of note. So others had really lost a person they know personally. But the biggest thing is that Khomoto will come and say, what if this happened to me? Then she starts crying for what if it happened to her and it has nothing to do with me. So there's also
yes.
that part
Did
where
that piss you off?
it doesn't piss me off per se, but it makes me wonder, why would you imagine it happening to you? Like,
Mm,
who would comfortably think of something so horrible?
mm,
Because I suppose I'm trying to be sort of like on the put my feet in their shoes. Um, it's imagining the horror, maybe like a thank God moment, or
mm.
like, or a word of caution to be like, hey, I must be careful because this could
No,
happen to
but
me.
the reality of the life we live, what will be, will be. Like, there's
Mm.
nothing we can stop.
And how do you feel about people who might have, and I'm sure some people said it's God's will. Is it something that you
It
believe?
is. I am a firm believer in thy will be done.
Mm,
I'm a firm believer in thinking that God doesn't make mistakes.
mm.
And I think when I eventually got there is when you encounter a 7-year-old burying their only parent.
Yeah.
Now imagine me, an adult, burying my child, where I can have a little cute casket, I can design little flowers. A 7-year-old child only knows this one parent, and lo muntu sehambile. At that age, you don't even have the language to articulate. Like, it's the knowing how we were at 7, you trip and you'd be like, Mama! And she's
Mm.
there hugging you and kissing you. This child will never experience that.
I never thought about it
And
that way. You know that?
I didn't think it's
Mm,
cruelty because I was brought up by an orphaned person. My mom lost her parents very early
mm,
and she turned out quite okay. I think God has a plan. You might not know it then, but you just
mm,
have to trust the process. And trusting the process comes with being in the moment. When it hurts, cry. When it doesn't make sense, pray, talk to him. But allow yourself to go through whatever you need to go through. Eventually, with time, you'll get it.
mm. And listening to you talk, it's
Yeah.
very clear that for you uh, to explain this, because I think all of us naturally, when something really, really tragic and something really, really shocking happens to us, what I do personally
You
is
own it.
I no I go into a philosophical space where I start almost rationalizing it philosophically and so on. So for you, that space, for you, it sounds like is in your spirituality. So the question I'm asking you is: have you always been this spiritual, or is it something that this experience then made you go further into that realm as a coping mechanism as well?
Okay, so the acceptance of death is something I don't have. So when
Mm.
I'm still battling with DJ Wandi's passing as we speak.
Eish,
Like
yeah.
the fact that he drove to Polokwane wherever and his last words to me were "Mntwana ma ngibuya ngizokufonela." I'm still desiring that call. I saw the funeral, I know he's gone, but that chapter can't close. So I also battle with death a lot and deeply so.
Mm,
But there's a part of me that believes we're going to hook up someday. We're
mm,
going to be united. But that very same point, because my reunited is heaven,
mm,
means I need to behave. I need to
mm,
watch how I do things so that I qualify to go to heaven. But aside from that, growing up, you know Brooke Benson's song, "We're all gonna die someday."
Yeah.
It used to play somehow in my house. And when you say it jokingly, "We're all gonna die someday," you don't own it, you don't mean it. But my father, when he was passing, he passed of cancer. And
mm.
he knew he was going, he was happy to go, he was comfortable. And I kept on saying, "But I don't even have children, I don't have." And he's like, "Nana, we knew when we were born, we're going to pass someday."
Hold that thought,
Yeah.
Khosi. We will be back right after this. Welcome back to Still Uncaptured. We're still talking to Khosi Magubane, and we're talking grief. We're
Mm.
talking about what it means to lose a child,
Yeah.
essentially. How many years has it been now, Khosi, since you lost your child?
She would have been 15 in July, so it's 12.
Oh man, 15.
Yeah.
So what does grief look like all these years later?
Kgomotso, I will be honest with you. I'm blessed. And I think Mudimu might have not given me a whole lot of things, but one thing God was intentional in giving me was love. And I'll give you an example about last year. So last year on her birthday, I was in Durban. I opened my phone. Oh, we had cupcake with my son. So I've got a 9-year-old. He's 9 now, yeah. We had a cupcake. We bought cakes because we knew it's Monday's birthday. We had a cupcake in the morning. We said a prayer. We ate the cake. Then I looked at my phone. Literally, Langelihle Nolwazi, my friends had posted my daughter's birthday.
Mm, mm,
11 years later, they
mm,
celebrate her.
mm,
Couldn't ask for more.
mm.
Like she was here.
Right.
She might have left soon. And the love they show, the assurance, the reminder, I don't get hurt. I want you to talk about Monday.
Mm,
I want you not to pretend she wasn't here.
right.
I want you to post a picture if that's how you feel. And God kind of gets it that to me means love.
Mm,
And when I woke up that day, I had no expectations. I just knew, oh, it's Monday's birthday, life goes on. But it didn't. Calls came in. "Hey, baby girl, we're praying for you. Hey, baby, we're thinking about you." I had a call from Cape Town, teacher Natalie. She was like, "I know what today is, Khosi, sending you love." The fact that 12 years later, they remember is more than I could ask for.
Do you dream of her?
She's come to all my friends but me. And she always comes with a smile and happiness. But there was a time I called either Power or Kaya. One of the two, they had a median on air. And then I called before I could say anything. It was a David or an American guy who was coming to Monte Casino, said to me, "You need to stop crying." Ngathi mina, why? And like, I haven't said hello. I haven't introduced myself. I haven't said anything. And he says, you need to stop crying. And I said, why? And then he said, she hadn't come for you. She came for her father. Now, the weird part is that her father passed away when she was 11 weeks, which was a mind F of note because I have this little infant. I can't properly grieve. I can't cry. And everyone is saying, "Mhlebe, ukuthi ubabakhe akekho." And I'm like, how did I get here? Like, how is this me? And also, she was the sense of comfort after her father was gone with at least Yenukhona. So imagine my say hambe landela ubabakhe. Like bangishiya nobani. Like, it didn't make sense. And when that guy said to me, you need to stop crying, she came to the world, she didn't find you, she followed her dad. But don't worry, she'll send you somewhere. So when Kwezi was born, and Kwezi was an intentional, oh, I want a child, I feel empty. But God has a sense of humor. When you say, oh, I want a child, yeah, you'll be on your own like you asked. Yeah.
And so,
Be clear.
and so part of this is someone might be watching you right now and be sitting there, because this is what, particularly, okay, maybe I'm speaking for myself, my mind. Sometimes I'll be watching someone sit in a studio and they're talking about such a thing, and and grief, like right now you had a moment, and so on. I ask myself, if I was in that situation, would I do it? Which then leads me to my question: is part of it, I imagine, but I do not want to put words in your mouth, but is part of it for yourself as well, to it's part of your catharsis, talking about it. But the second question there being, is it also about someone who's watching, particularly people like myself, who's a parent, who sometimes I look at my children and I'm just, and I don't, it's so difficult. You don't even want to think about it. It's like,
You shouldn't.
well, I don't want to think about it and so on. But the mind being what it is, do you have anything to say to someone who's watching you, who has children right now? What do you say to them about those thoughts, particularly those thoughts? Yeah.
A big part of me believes the angels that do good have a brief to say, okay, do good, take care of course. The angels that do bad are waiting for you to have doubt, then they take over. So you know how they speak about manifestation, positive, negative? The moment you think of something negative, it's most likely to happen. But how many times have I thought of winning the lotto? And I even see what I'm gonna do with it, but it hasn't happened. So I believe the negative is eager to take control of situations. So in instances where you can talk yourself out of an ugly thing that you don't want, rather do that and believe when your child walks out at the door, he's going to be amazing at school. He's going to pass. He's going to go to school. He's going to come home safe. He's covered by the Holy Spirit. He's going to be all right. The moment you open yourself to negative things, and that's why when you go to people, also, and yes, it came to me. I think God was talking to me, but why would God talk about hurting your child? So I think it requires us to train our mind, and it's not an easy thing. It requires us to train our mind to just stay in a positive space as much as you can. And the spirituality in me remembers that in the beginning there was the word. So I think in words, there's something. So we need to try as best as we can to keep them in a good space. And you know how karma works? If I wish you well, I believe well is going to happen to me. The same way karma works. So I think positivity is something that we should be intentional about.
That we really shouldn't try as hard as we can to not to go into that
Not
space.
to dwell, I
Not to
suppose.
dwell on
But
it.
I
Yeah.
do want to ask you this. In retrospect, or speaking to parents with pools,
Yes.
what could you or would you have done differently? Or what is your advice to parents who have pools who don't want to fill them up with cement? To be like, just to a word of caution, maybe.
Hormones, it's not the pool. It could be a cancer. It could be a car accident.
Right.
It could be anything. I truly believe what will be will be. the sad part is we learn all lessons in retrospect. And sometimes you go on not knowing what the lesson is. I don't know why my baby left. I have no idea. And
I
I
can't
don't
imagine
think,
also. Like,
nah,
what is the lesson?
I haven't learned
No.
it. And I don't even think it was make room to make for Ukwezi, because Ukwezi is his own individual living in his own world. There's
Yeah.
no clashes of any sort. But I just believe most instances, there's things that happen that we don't even foresee coming. No Sangoma can tell you this will happen. So I think you just get to a space where you accept. So it's okay. Life will happen and it will happen the way it wants to happen.
Do you believe in the afterlife?
Yes. With all my heart, I believe, especially
Oh,
my
she's
dad
been
and
so
I.
clear. She's so clear on this. She's been clear.
The problem
during
is I
this.
might not have time for other people.
Yeah.
When I get to heaven, I have a bone to pick with DJ Monday. I have Wendy to catch up with. I've got my dad to update on. Guy, when you left, you know what? That husband of mine did. Yo, I've got so many things. I look forward to the afterlife. And if it wasn't for Crazy, I'd probably be looking forward to dying soon as well. But I'm not suicidal. I just know when we get there, it's going to be fine. I'm finding Brenda Fassi as well. Like, I believe in the afterlife.
You know, that's so interesting because, you know, life spews us out wherever it spews us out.
Yeah.
I come from I like to use the word
Religious.
hectically Catholic family, right? And the words I like to use to explain my situation, because a lot of people, guys, stop saying I'm an atheist, because I'm not. I'm not an atheist. I think that I am a cultural Catholic, but who's an agnostic, right?
Yeah.
So the words I like to use is I like to say faith is a gift that I have yet to be bestowed. You know, it's
You'd be
one of those things. I had it at some point. I do not have it anymore. So it's very interesting. You should talk about Wandi, because I also, you know, he was my colleague at Kaya when he left, and I remember very specific conversation I had with him just before he left. Jabba as well, WHP. I remember he came into our studio with Sikumba.
Yes.
And so for you to actually have that belief that in the afterlife you will actually be with them is for me, I think, a huge positive.
Do you believe in the afterlife, Ndumiso?
Unfortunately, I don't.
So what do you
I
think,
really don't.
What do you think happens when we're at a border?
We die. It's the end. It's like for me, it's the end, and it's got absolutely nothing to do. And it seems so odd and almost cruel to be saying this to you when you're you know, and so on. But I really do believe in the universe. I mean, I suppose studying science and physics doesn't help. That everything in the universe has a beginning,
But all
and
of
at
that
the
is
end it
man-made.
ends. Yeah.
Somebody decided the sun is rotating. Somebody decided there's a planet. All of that is somebody's amazing mind somewhere, somehow.
A magician.
I'm-
See, I'm somewhere in between both of you.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like raised with it, so culturally Catholic,
Yeah.
because I was raised sort of like within the faith, but constantly questioning the doctrine of Christianity. But I tell you what, yo, yeah, pasa mina. Yeah, pasa. And
Listen.
Mangtandaza, ne?
Yeah.
I always finish off with going like, and in the name of Jesus.
But what's interesting about that is that I think that one of the clips that have gone viral about this show is you saying almost the exact opposite. Because I think that
that's why I say questioning.
questioning. Yeah.
My problem is with blind faith.
Yeah.
Skaba dumb.
Yeah.
Skaba dumb. You know, like
Augment your faith with reason and reading.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know,
But I also understand that I don't know everything that's out there in the universe. You know, it's kind of like, I'm not saying I do, but maybe I do. It's like when you smoke weed.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not saying I do.
Yes,
why are you looking at me? I smoke weed. Of course I smoke weed. Right?
So all I'm saying is that there's times when you smoke weed where it opens up other avenues.
Of course.
Do you understand? Like things that you be like, wow, blows the mind. So there are things that on a normal basis we will not be able to see and comprehend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I put some space in my life that there are things that I'm never going to be able to make sense of. And there are things that I can't see or won't be able to see with the naked, stupid human
face.
eye.
And part of the reason that I'm not an atheist is precisely because of that. Because I think at the moment you close your mind to even the mere possibility. Agnostic means
bigger
that
power.
I am open to it. In other words, I will never close my mind. You know my favorite, my favorite quote. Where I say that for me, my definition of stupidity is the failure to allow the ingress of new information to change your mind. If I ever see evidence of the existence of a life after or of a God, I absolutely please. I'm very happy, and you're actually also quite right about that experience with tetrahydron.
With the holy herb.
Tetrahydro 9 cannabinol is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful drug.
THC.
Because it really does use the word avenue. I liked it. Yeah, it opens up other avenues. You start looking at there's other dimensions. You start thinking, and even when you are out of it, it lingers.
Of course.
It stays with you. But I wanted to ask you, just to change up, a bit of tact a little bit. Is so I just said at the beginning of this episode that I have a friend, Nkosinathi Madlala, who just lost his son, who's a Tembe Madlala, 30 years old, beautiful boy who was, only 2 months younger than my firstborn, Ntobeko, who's also 30, and so on. So
You guys have been doing
know, eh?
intercourse.
A whole
I'm
30-year-old.
I'm 53, guys.
I know.
You don't think 23-year-olds are here? 23
I know
were
they are.
you not there at 23?
I think because I'm not a mother per se, I have a very weird concept of what it means. So when I see Untobeko, it's like, this Negro is 30 years old.
I
And he
know.
belongs to this Negro.
A grown man. I should be having a grandchild.
You should by now.
Really, but he's not interested. Don't get any ideas. We're not there. But the thing about it is that awkwardness that you were talking about is my friend lost his child about 14 days ago. So 2 weeks, right? Other than just that conversation that we had when he told me and I said, oh, way too, and you know how I believe in silence, particularly because I just never find the appropriate words. I fear saying the wrong thing. But it's been 2 weeks and I have not had this conversation with you. Now I know it took 12 years, right? 12 years for me to have this conversation with you. Now you have gone through it from the other side. Speak to me, advise me about what should I be doing? Because I'm sitting there and I keep on looking at my phone and I'm looking at the Tembe's picture and the memorial picture and I'm just thinking, is the time right? Is it time? Should I just need for you to
Is the
just talk
time
to me?
right?
Because I know someone's is going through it as we speak right now,
now.
sitting there going, should I call Nkosinathi? Should I?
Yeah. The truth is, the way life works, things make sense in their own way. So you might not talk to Nkosinathi now, but the day the encounter comes, it's going to make so much sense to him. So it almost feels like you get a collection of messages coming as and when it pleases. With Nomonde, I could see people coming into my house, didn't come to say anything to me, but made sure there's food in the kitchen for people to eat. I could see people sweeping outside. And sometimes I'd even ask Kubani, I was traumatized to see my boys, Abuje, Nabotabang, pouring soil into my baby's grave. Because my mind said they should do that for me, not for my child. So that messed me up a bit. But I think you play the role you're supposed to play to ease his journey. So you'll be surprised coming back here, maybe 3 months from now, and you say, we had a beer and this is what transpired. And I healed him because that's what he would be needing at that time. So if it doesn't feel like it's a time to call, it's okay. And the fact that he called you to tell you, he knows where you stand with him. It doesn't make him uncomfortable. And if he feels that he's expecting visible, physical from everybody else. With time, he's gonna know. You do get people who grieve and then like they'll say, "Yeah, ebile na kgomotso ha tla papa ka tlhokofetse." And with time, they'll learn that the day kgomotso comes will be the day when the world is empty. And the fact that she didn't come for your father's funeral will not matter because you need her at that time. So trust the process.
And before we go away, I just need to say this. I just said, I spoke to the universe and I said, maybe I'm looking for signs. It occurs to me now as I'm sitting here with you, is that this friend of mine I haven't seen in years. And the day before his son passed on,
You spoke.
we had a date. I had said to him, listen, man, I'm in Durban. Can I drive over to Hammersdale to come see you? And he had said, yay, and so on. So by the time I called him, he said to me, no, I need to go to Maritzburg. And now I'm wondering, because we haven't had that conversation. And now I'm wondering, is that the day that whatever took his son away from him? Because, I don't know. I don't know if it means anything. Yeah.
Hold that thought. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. Still in conversation with Khosi Magubane, and we're wrapping it up. We're talking about losing your child, that process. And before we went on break, so you were talking about, when is the right time as a friend? What should you do? And part of it, I suppose, is, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Khosi, is that, sometimes you just go there and you sit with people. You sit with them in their grief. And not having to say anything.
You don't have to say anything.
You don't have to come up with great words of wisdom for your friend because you don't have them. But just to physically be there might mean more to him than you imagine. Is something that I would also encourage you to do, because I've been going to quite a few funerals lately because at our age we help our mothers as well, and they're going to the friends.
Well,
funeral.
you're actually coming from a funeral right now as we're
Literally.
recording that, which is
literally.
Yeah.
And I just think that don't underestimate. Don't underestimate the importance of also just showing up without necessarily knowing what you're going to say. Or being able to do. And when you're in that moment, you will see also around what's needed. And you also ask. One thing I love about Black people is you talked about the community coming together. There are people who are sweeping, who's that outside of my house? Is that we've got a way of rallying around each other physically, which is really helpful. Is that something that is a true observation?
It's a true observation, but I also want to add something. Remember earlier we were talking about ukupahla. So if you come into my space, I believe you're not coming alone. Maybe I don't want your voice. Maybe it's the person with you who has a role to play here. Maybe your Josie is paving the way for my child to have a gentle journey through. Because the angels talk to each other. The reason I meet a guy and I think, oh, he's cute, the cocos might have already negotiated with and so I think even in your silence, it's not incorrect. There's a role we play in whatever we do. We don't have to be able to rationalize and reason everything that we do. Sometimes we do. A typical example, I could walk out of here and see a street kid. There's one who moved me enough to give them 20 bucks, and there's one I just walked past. How do you explain that? How do you choose? So I believe that's when the Holy Spirit takes over and you do what you got to do for that moment. And it's okay. I don't have to understand it. I'd go crazy trying to understand it.
Sure.
You may or may not be inclined to be prescriptive as we're busy wrapping this up, but one question I absolutely have to ask you, because having gone through grief and lost my father about 5 years ago, there are certain things for me that to this day if we'll have another show talking about just generally what people do in these particular situations. But for you and from your experience, what are the absolute no-nos when you are in this situation? You just lost your child, 3 years old, you are going through all of this. People, and I love the fact that most of this conversation has been about all the positive things that people did and they came around.
Right.
But what are those things, or what are that one thing or those things that you want to say to people? Whatever happens, don't do this in this particular situation.
I think for me, whatever happens, don't impose. Don't use, "Ko gae, we do this therefore."
Mm.
Don't come tell me, even if you dream. Gore, like, I don't want to know until I'm okay to know. So you get overwhelmed by everybody thinking they know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And if you don't have a mother who's as solid as mine, you could blink and the next thing, everything that's happened, you had no control over.
Sure.
So I think people should know their place and should have the decency to ask, but also people who are not your front row shouldn't pretend to be. So my front row knows exactly how things roll. They know to hide the Tupperware. They know to do, like they've got this.
Attention
But my
seekers.
new people, engabazi, and then they come, "Hi, asfagi mal pants carpet. Hi, no, guys, no. Like,
Know
This
your
is not
place.
know
about
your
you.
place.
This is not
Yes.
about you.
Yes.
And it's not about
It's
you.
not about you.
And
Yeah.
people impose in a space where you can't lose your cool because that's so you have to be conscious of, I can't overdo anything because sishonelwe. Sisemanzini,
Uzodlula.
uzodlula. So, and you could see some people are actually pushing their luck to see how far they can go. And staying composed is not for everyone. And some of us just pray for you. Ukuthi deala naye Nkosi njengo-Deborah Fraser. And that's even worse.
No, but I mean, that conversation about Udlula when my father passed on, it was like literally 2 weeks after the first lockdown. I mean, the country, we were all just like in shock about the whole thing. Then I lose my father. Remember, you know, you and I were at car. And I remember, but the conversation about Udlula is people just coming in, and it's like 23 people. And I was fearing saying to people so much, Pumani. Like, what, the Funani. Like, why? You know? So I get that.
So I think people, as much as they come with good intentions, they really need to respect your space. Yeah. And sometimes you don't have the words, yukbakuza. We all just look and we're like, oh my gosh.
And also, I think there's a certain kind of behavior that's expected of the bereaved.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly women.
Yes.
Uchachi yang meole. Omo matrasing mara.
With my mom, I had aunties in the kitchen saying, "How udla kanjani eshonelwe indoda? Mayingadli kuzothiwa why engadli ufeel guilty." So you just there's nothing.
Yeah, there's a
you
huge
can't
big
do for
conversation
people.
to
It's a
be
lot.
had
It's a lot.
about our
How we grieve
so-called
as Black
African
people.
traditions and
Yeah.
grieving. We've got problems.
We've got serious problems.
Very serious
It's
problems.
not a
yeah.
lie.
Khosi, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story.
Thank
And
you.
in memory of Nomonde, may she live forever in your hearts and soul.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for being so generous with us. You know,
Yes.
I thought long and hard before I called you. What I'm asking Khosi to come and do.
Especially
And
because you
were
guys
so
hadn't talked in
kind.
a while.
In a while,
In a
yeah.
And so I'm
while,
just like,
you
so you're
know.
just going to call
Oh, we
someone
spoke
and
about
say,
the books.
No, but
Oh, you spoke about the books.
we
Because I
have,
was worried,
yeah.
I'm just sort of like, also, Khosi. Because you haven't talked to anyone. I was like, we want to talk about your child's death. Can you come on the show? You know, producers.
No, we've kept in touch, and this is one of the beauties. I mean, we'll talk about the negative side of social media, but the good,
helps.
it doesn't feel like we haven't seen each other in such a in a
I
long
get
time.
to know what's happening.
Yeah, we
Thank you,
talk.
social
You know, we
media.
talk.
Fantastic. Thank you very much to you,
Okay,
Khosi. Thank you very much to you. And don't forget to interact with us on all our platforms. Let us know what you think of the conversation we've had. And maybe let us know what conversations you'd love for Ndumiso and I to have from all of us in the studios. Goodbye.